All right. What is one thing people assume about you that isn't true? Oof. Probably that I'm an asshole. I mean, I would have to say that's probably it. I'd be willing to bet that a lot of people think that I'm an asshole because I do have hardcore resting bitch face. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It is another week of the Chasing Bellotta podcast. I'm your host, Jason. I swear, man, every week I look at this screen and my camera is level, but my frames, they just look a little off and it really bothers me. Um, but whatever, we're just going to roll with it. Like I said, this is a show of imperfection. So, other than that, it's been a good week. Finally got to play some golf yesterday. The weather in Virginia has been unusually annoying for winter. I mean, usually it's cold, but we don't really get much snow, this, that, and the other. And we've had snow, we've had ice. It was actually down in the low 20s there for a few days. I mean, it was pretty miserable. So yesterday was a decent day. It started out foggy, but the sun came out. It was around like 35 when I teed off. But it ended up being in like the mid to high 40s by the time I was done. So it was a good day. It wasn't very windy at all. And for not having touched my clubs in over a month and no warm up before the round, I was very, very pleased. I shot an 80. I went 40-40. Only had one double bogey. I was a little disappointed in that. I hit a bad tee shot. And I recovered from the tee shot nicely, but just didn't execute the rest of the hole. So for today, one of the things we're going to talk about is, what I've learned in golf and a few other topics. But that'll be one of the things I discuss. It's going to be when should you chase par, right? At our skill level, when should you be chasing par and when should you just be, hey, bogey's a great score? And we'll get to that. I think I'm going to pretty much keep it about golf today. I was going to talk about a topic that could potentially be a hot button topic for some people, veteran status. And I'm not going to do that, at least not yet. I am a veteran, 24 and a half years in the Navy, so I feel like I've earned the right to speak my mind on the status of a veteran, what it means to me, how I think some people have a bad habit of just throwing it in your face all the time for no reason. But, that's for another day. We'll get to that at some point. Other than that, I want to touch on, these are my notes over here, if I keep looking. I want to just recap the scramble rant from last week. So, as you know, last week I talked about 4 average golfers saying that they consistently in a scramble shoot 60, 58, 57, 50, sometimes even down in the low 50s. And I call bullshit on it. It's just not the way the game works. If you just look at basic statistics and all that other stuff. Now, I'm part of this Facebook group page. I think it's a page. And there's probably almost 300,000 people in this group, and it's just all about golf, right? So I decided, you know what? I'm going to post my thoughts on this page. And all in all, I'm going to grab my phone here. It doesn't tell me exactly how many comments I got. I got a ton of responses. I can't even count how many. I got upwards of almost 200 likes on it or laughs. Um, the thing is, here's what bothers me, and I had to reply to some of these comments with some of these people. Reading comprehension goes a long way, right? Don't just read like the first couple sentences of something and then just, oh, I've got my response. Boom, I'm going to start talking. It makes you look stupid. Because I had more than a handful of people come on here and talk about, oh, well, I'm an 8 and I'm the worst golfer in my foursome and we regularly shoot 60, sometimes 58, 59. That might be true, but that's not what I was posting about. The argument is for average golfers, because I think the worldwide average handicap is right around 15. It might be 14 something, but we'll just say 15 for argument's sake. And let's be honest, a lot of these scrambles are just buddies that decide they want to play in a scramble tournament, maybe drink beer, have a great time, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so people were obviously just completely misunderstanding what I was trying to say. Most people, though, I will say, read what I wrote and responded with common sense answers and answers that made sense. One guy, and this is great, one guy hit me up. He lives in Las Vegas, and he's got a YouTube page called Golf Guardians. And there's only a few videos so far, but he turned me onto that page because they make videos about what certain level of golfer is going to shoot in a scramble. And the first video, and I watched the whole thing, it was about an hour long. The first video is of him and 3 of his buddies, all of them well above average golfers. And they barely shot 11 under on 18 holes, right? No mulligans, no nothing, all strokes. I will say that they probably could have got to 13 or 14 under, maybe even 15 under. But we're talking about guys whose best rounds on the course they were playing were either under par or right at par. So in my mind, it just added more validity to my argument that 4 average golfers are not shooting 60, 61, 62. They're just not. Could they do it on a very rare, random, one-off day? Of course, anything can happen. But on average, they're not going to do that. And more often than not, that's the score people say they shot. So, but it's a really good YouTube channel, and they've got more videos coming out of golfers who are even better than them. And then I think they've got one coming out of actual professional golfers who do it. So it's going to be fun to watch and see what they shoot in an 18-hole scramble. But anyways, other than that, again, I think today's going to be all about golf. My check this shit out is going to be about when I caddied in a professional golf tournament. And then my actual golf segment will be about what I've learned from golf. So let's just get right into it. So for this week's check this shit out, I thought I would talk about the time that I got to caddy in a professional event. You have to excuse me today. I'm kind of on the struggle bus today. Not for party reasons or anything like that. Parental reasons. We all love those middle of the night wake ups from our kids, and I got one about 4 o'clock this morning. Our youngest son, who's a senior in high school, he was homesick yesterday, and he's homesick again today. He came in my room at like 4 o'clock this morning, and I'm not one of those people that's like a violent wake up person. I'm just kind of that guy that opens his eyes. But I just hear, like, Dad, I need your help. Right? Like, what a way to wake up. And I'm like, jarring myself awake. He's like, I need your help. And I'm like, what time is it? And he's like, oh, it's like 4. In my mind, I'm like, what the hell could he need help with at 4 o'clock in the morning? But turns out one of the dogs, that it's actually my oldest daughter's dog, and they live a couple miles away. But the dog, Mickey, that's his name, Mickey and the dude are like best buddies, right? And so we went over to her house last night for my grandson's birthday and brought the dog back for a sleepover with the dude, and he ended up getting violently ill at like 4 o'clock in the morning and just throwing up everywhere. So that was a lot of fun. I went from being dead asleep to dreaming about who knows what, to cleaning up dog vomit. So lots of fun. And I just, at that point, 30 minutes later, you're wide awake. So, but either way, I've got coffee. We're good to go. So yes. So I had the unique opportunity to caddy in a professional event. Backstory to how it happened. If you're not familiar with one of the YouTube golfers out there, his name's Matt, but his golf channel or his YouTube channel is called Golf Sidekick. And I stumbled onto Golf Sidekick it was towards the end of COVID. It might have been right around the end of 2020 or early 21. And if you don't follow Golf Sidekick, you really need to, right? Because I like to get on here and talk about golf and strategy and course management and this and that. Matt's channel is just videos of that. Like, he makes amazing tutorial videos, but also puts it to practice because he films while he's playing. And so if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. I might try and get him on here to see if he'd be willing to be on the podcast. Because I kind of know him. I don't think I know him well enough to say that we're friends. But I did play golf with him when he came over to the United States back in 2022. Or was it 21? Actually, it was 2021. He hit me up on Instagram, asked me if I wanted to drive up to near the DC area and play Potomac Shores. And so I did. And so kind of through that, I became familiar with a guy that's a professional golfer from over in Thailand named Mo Lim. He's on Matt's channel a lot. He goes by Promo. Anyways, Promo had come over to America because he won some sort of an Asian Tour event. And because of that, it got him into the 3M Open up in Minnesota. And so he came to America. He played in the 3M Open. And then he tried to Monday qualify for Quail Hollow, I think, in Charlotte. And then after that, he stuck around because he was going to try and earn his tour card on the Korn Ferry Tour. And so because he didn't have any previous Korn Ferry status, he had to start at the very bottom tournament, which is the Korn Ferry pre-qualifier for Q School. And so he needed a caddy for that. It was 3 days. And I hit him up. I'm like, hey, man, I can come down and caddy for you if you need a caddy. And he jumped all over it because I told him I'd do it for free. He's a professional golfer. He pays his caddies. I told him I'd do it. He asked me, hey, what would you charge? I said, nothing, man, nothing. I just want to help out. And so, of course, he was very cool with that. So, yeah, I drove down to Bermuda Run is where the golf course was, down in, it was in Bermuda Run, North Carolina. And, I got down there. It started on, I feel like it started on a Wednesday. So I got down there the day before. I told him I couldn't come down for any of his practice rounds. Cause I was still in the Navy then. I was working, but I was on shore duty. So he was cool with that. He's like, yeah, that's fine. So I drove down the night before the tournament started. We had dinner. We talked about, hey, what do you expect from me? Like, cause I want to make sure that I don't muck this up for this guy. This is his career in his life. So I was just, what do you expect from me as your caddy? Like, do you just want me to stand there and hold the bag? Do you want my input? Do you want me giving you yardages? What do you want? He was like, hey, whatever you feel comfortable with. He was like, you're a golfer. So by all means, help me get yardages, help me read greens, this, that, and the other. So I said, all right, cool. So the next day, the first round, we meet up on the driving range, and I go in the pro shop. I get they have these championship yardage guides that they gave us. They gave all the players, and if you had a caddy, not everybody had a caddy. And so it was the Bermuda Run Country Club, the East course, and it's not like some of those books you see the PJ Tour guys talking about, but they are pretty detailed as far as like hole layout, tons of yardages, what you're looking for. And so I watched him on the range warm up, and I was kind of getting a feel for his yardages. And I'll say this. When you're watching professional golfers warm up, it is just not like anything you're used to, right? These guys pure every shot. When Mo started hitting his driver, it was like an explosion. The sound was just ridiculous. And he's not a big guy. Like I said before, I'm roughly around 5'9". I think Mo's like 5'8". But he hits the ball a ton. And he was hitting driver, and at one point, like, I'm just watching this ball go so far that I grab his rangefinder and I start lasing where the ball is landing. And he's hitting the ball well over 300 yards on a carry. Now, mind you, the range was slightly downhill, but still, he would end up averaging 300-ish yards throughout the tournament. But it's just crazy. It's just next level golf, right? Like, that's why those guys have to play from the tips, because they just tear a course apart with their driver. I really don't think on any par 4 that week, because it was 3 rounds, it was 3 days, and I don't think on any par 4 I handed him more than a 8-iron, maybe a 7-iron after a tee shot. So, but yeah, it was a great time. He started strong. He came out of the gate firing. He shot a first round 68, which was a 4-under. And it was cool because he put his trust in me. Like, from the word go, he trusted me. The first hole, literally the first hole of the first round, I'm giving him yardages in the fairway. He doesn't question it. We were allowed to use rangefinders. So, while I would find a yardage, find a sprinkler head or a yardage marker and figure out the yardage manually, I could also get it with the rangefinder just to double check myself, make sure I wasn't giving him bad information. When it came to, one thing I distinctly remember, when I knew he trusted me for sure, was the second hole was like this downhill almost straight dog leg left. Or no, it's not a dog leg left, but what hole was that? I'm sorry. I'm giving you bad information. Either way, he tees off on the second hole, and he like cuts the corner. He flies over some trees, and he's got, a flip wedge in. And he asks me, hey, where do you think's a good spot to land this ball on the green? Right? The pin is on the middle left. And so, I look at my yardage book. Now, I've never seen the course. I've never walked the course. I'm going strictly off my yardage book and the green layouts. And I'm like, well, hey, I'm looking at my book here, and it tells me that if you land this ball just left of center, it's going to take the slope and it should feed down towards the hole. And he's like, all right, sounds good. So he picks a target. He hits his wedge. He lands it just left of center. And it's kind of elevated, so we're like, yeah, that should be good. That should be good. You should be sitting close. We get up there, and he's like 2 feet from the hole. So I was like, cool. I've got the man's trust. um, and we just kind of went from there, ups and downs, mostly birdies, some bogeys. Like I said, first round, he shot, what did he shoot here? I've got it pulled up. It has been a while. Yeah, he went 68 in the first round. He went 68 in the second round. And then the final round, the third round, he was sitting pretty. He was actually right near the top of the leaderboard. And then in the third round, he kind of had a little bit of a bad day. He ended up shooting a 4 over par 76. But it was a stress-free 76 because he was well within the projected cut line. So he was going to be moving on from there to the first stage of Q school. So the pressure was off of him on that last day. I mean, he would have had 7 over qualified for first stage. So Mo would have literally had to have shot in the high 80s to fall out of contention. So he did have some bad holes, a couple triple bogeys. Hey, it happens to the best of us, right? There you go. A professional golfer getting a triple bogey. But I think my favorite thing of the week, this was looking back on it, maybe I should have been more of a what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe I should have been more forceful in a decision-making process we had. But at the end of the day, I worked for him. So what happened was we get on the final day, we started on 10. So as we're coming to the end of the round, the 8th hole is a par 3 over water. You can kind of see the diagram here. Here's the tee boxes, this is the lake, and here's the green. How often do you hear me talk about lakes on par 3s? So the previous 2 days, I took all these notes too. Every round I wrote notes. What he hit, the distance, where he ended up, whatever. So the first round, the wind was coming hard into us at 191 yards, so I had him hit a 5-iron. Puts it on the green, he 2-putts for par. The second day, it's playing 195 yards. The wind is into us, but it's not really that strong. It's kind of a light breeze. So he goes with 6-iron, puts it on the green, 2-putt par. So the third day we get there, and again, like I said, he wasn't having the best day, but he was still, like I said, stress-free. He knows he's moving on. So, he was happy. And so we're standing on the tee box, and we're playing with these 2 guys that we had been paired up with the day before, a couple of ridiculously good golfers. Brandon Barry, who has been on TV a couple times with the PGA Tour and the Korn Ferry Tour, and Keenan Bronenberg, also another excellent golfer. And these are guys that are coming out of college and, trying to take the next step. But we're standing on the 8th tee box, and I'm looking around, and I'm looking at the water on the lake. And the water on the lake is going away from us towards the green. Right? There's houses behind us, so they kind of mask the wind a little bit. But the water, I'm watching the water ripples, and they're going towards the green. And so I'm talking to Mo, and I'm like, hey, I go, you got 192 to the stick. The wind's at our back, so, I would probably go with 7-iron. Right? Because he'd hit 5-iron the first day in a strong headwind, 6-iron yesterday, and a slight wind into his face. So now we're a little downwind, and it's 192 yards. So I'm like, hey, I think you need to hit 7-iron here. I think it's a perfect club. And he goes, no. He goes, look at the trees. The trees are blowing kind of against us. I said, I know that, but look at the water. And he's like, well, I'm going to go with a 6 iron. So I want him to be confident because what I don't want him to do is hit a bad shot in the water. So he's like, I think 6 iron's a good club for me on this shot. So I go, okay. So I give him the 6 iron and I just kind of go off to the side. I'm like, oh man, I know what's going to happen. And sure enough, he nuts one and just completely airmails the green. And the funny part is, he hits the shot. We all watch it. It flew over the green, but the back of the green had a mound, and so it landed on the rough on top of that mound. So he's walking over to me, and I'm standing there, and I just kind of look at him, and he hands me the 6 iron, and he kind of smiles, and he goes, downwind. Yep, downwind, brother. So, and I even wrote, because I told you I tracked all the shots. I don't know if you can see it, but I wrote 192 6 iron airmailed because that's exactly what he did. And he ended up chipping on and two-putting for bogey. So it is what it is. It was a moment we had it ended up being funny. Now, I can only imagine if he was near or on the cut line and we had that disagreement, it wouldn't have been so funny. So we're lucky there. But yeah, he ended up making the cut well within the number. Like I said, it was 7 over. Mo ended up 1 under for the week, and he moved on. So I think he's back in Thailand now on the Asian tour. And yeah, that's my professional caddying experience. It's the only time I've ever done it. I had a great time. I learned a lot, right? You know, rule number 1, like I said, I don't want to be a caddy that's doing the wrong thing. So we made that abundantly clear right up front. What do you expect from me? And he was such a great dude about it. And he said, hey, if you can help, help. Something else I realized is when you get to watch that level of golf up close for 3 days, I mean, it's just night and day different from the kind of golf that we play. These guys, obviously, they're so dialed in with their own game. They know how far they hit every club, not just full, but 3/4, half. Maybe if they need to step on one, put a little bit of extra on it. They know all of that. For us, a bad shot, we flare one way right, maybe miss the green completely, or we pull one left out of bounds. And that's not to say that they don't occasionally do that. But in general, a miss for them is firing at a flag and ending up 25, 30 feet away from it. Right? I mean, that's just the level of skill that these guys have that we don't. And it's all mental too, right? Like, you tee off and you're walking down the fairway and we're just shooting the shit about anything other than golf. Right? So it was a great time. I really enjoyed it. One moment that kind of stands out that I'm sure this guy blames me for. Well, he can't really blame me for it, but the first day we teed off. So we teed off on 10 the first day, 1 the second day, and we started on 10 the third day. The first day, we play the back 9 first, so we come around to number 1, and one of the guys that was playing in our group kind of like, not necessarily, I won't call it a snap hook, but overcooked one left. And it was kind of open, but there was also some pine trees kind of down the left side. And he says, did anybody see it? And I'm like, and he goes, did anybody see it? Should I hit a provisional? And I say, well, you should probably hit a provisional, but I do think I saw it land right around, and I pointed out where I thought the ball had landed. I said, I'm not 100% sure, but I think you came down in bounds, but you should probably hit a provisional. And he goes, well, if you saw it, I'm sure I'm good. Dude, we got up there. We looked for that ball for whatever the regulation time is, 3 minutes or something like that. And then he had to take the walk of shame back to the tee and re-tee. Now, to his credit, he never said anything to me like, I thought you said you saw it. Where is it? This, that, and the other. Because, again, slightly stressful environment. You know, these guys want to do well. But hey, man, I didn't tell you I knew where your ball was. I told you I think it came down in bounds over there, but you should probably hit a provisional just to be safe. So that's my professional caddy story. Hopefully, Mo if he ever comes back here, maybe I can caddy for him again. We'll see. All right. Okay, so let's talk about just some golf in general, right? What has golf taught me over the years? Now, it's not like, excuse me, it's not like I'm some expert. I've been playing golf now for almost 40 years. I started playing when I was about 10. Yeah, 10 sounds right. And of course, like anybody else, I was that typical beginner, right? Could barely hit the ball. I'm sure I topped it a lot, chunked it a lot, whatever the case might be. Couldn't break 100. And over the years, I became a fairly consistent 80s golfer. And I went through a phase where right out of high school, my first couple years out of high school, I went through this phase where it felt like I was damn near shooting par every time I stepped on the golf course. Like a bad day for me would be 80. But that was a very short-lived phase. And that was before I kept an actual handicap. So when I say that the lowest I've ever been was like a 2.2, I still consider that to be accurate. Because that phase I went through where I felt like I was shooting par all the time, it didn't last very long. A few months. So, I don't know. It was just one of those hot streaks, I guess. But, I will say, like these days, what do I consider a good round of golf? Compared to 10, 15 years ago, I would say back then, I probably focused on the scorecard. What did the scorecard say at the end of my round? If it didn't say I shot something in the 70s, then I probably didn't think it was a very good round. Now, like I said, I don't get mad. I don't get mad while I play golf. But that doesn't mean that I don't think I play good or bad. I just don't get upset about it. Nowadays, I consider a good round of golf to be how I actually played. I don't think in any round of golf that all phases of your game are clicking, right? Like very rarely do you ever have a day where you're just driving the ball great, your iron shots are great, your short game is great, your putting is lights out. That just doesn't happen that often. There's usually always one aspect of your game that just isn't working, right? So like yesterday, for example, my first round out in over a month because of weather and all that jazz, because it's winter time. I didn't warm up. I had the first tee time, so I had a 7:36 tee time, and I got there at 7:20. Well, I mean, I knew I wasn't going to warm up, so why get there earlier? Hit a few putts, talked to the starter, took like 2 or 3 practice swings, and off I went. Overall, it was a really, really good round. I ended up shooting 80. I shot 40 on the front, 40 on the back. I'm a 6 handicap. 80 is a good round. Now, my driver and fairway woods were terrible. Terrible. I could not for the life of me figure it out. I kept um, hitting my driver off the toe. So I would kind of put this little draw on it or even hook it. And for somebody that normally hits the ball carry with my driver like 260 in the wintertime off the toe, that thing's going like 215 yards, 220 yards in the air if I'm lucky. Like it was not a good day with the driver. Um, but I made up for it with my irons, my short game, and my putting. So, that's my point, right? Like, even though I did not have a good driving day or fairway woods in general, I still had what I considered a very, very good round of golf, especially since I hadn't been practicing. I hadn't even touched a club. It's not like I just hadn't played, but I'd been still going to the range. No, I have not. The only thing I did with my golf clubs in the past month was move them to a different spot in the garage. So, why would I be upset over an 80? Well, first of all, as a 6 handicap, why would I be upset over an 80 regardless? But I'm certainly not going to be upset over it, having not sniffed a golf course or my golf clubs in over a month with no warm up. So, I was actually highly surprised at how well I was hitting my irons. Now, I was being smart about it because it was cold. I was clubbing up for sure. 150-yard shot where I would, in the summertime, 150-yard shot, I'm probably hitting a 9 iron. As it cools off, I go to an 8 iron. When it's cold, I'm hitting a 7 iron. Because it's like the ball is like this little brick. I mean, that's what it feels like. When golf balls are cold, they do not want to fly. So I actually had a shot yesterday on the third hole. It's a par 3 where you have to hit over a ravine. So the ravine is red staked. And then right in front of the green is a bunker. And the flag was about 150 yards it was 147 yards on the front right. So I pulled 7 iron. Like, this is plenty of club. This is plenty of club. It'll at least fly to the middle of the green, and no harm, no foul. I'll take my medicine on a long 2-putt. And I caught the top lip of that bunker and fell back in the bunker at about 150 yards with a 7 iron. So, those are things you have to account for when you're playing in not so great conditions. And I ended up blasting out just a little long past the hole. Had like, I had like 12 feet for par, and I almost made it. So it was close. I ended up with bogey. But I'm never going to be mad about that, right? Get out of trouble. You get into trouble, you get out of trouble. Gave myself an opportunity for a par. Didn't capitalize on it, but again, a putt outside of 10 feet, the stats aren't in your favor. So how can I be mad about leaving it 2 inches outside the hole? I can't be. But yeah, that's what I consider a good round of golf. How I actually played. Other than my driver and my fairway woods, the other 3 aspects, phases of my game, whatever you want to call it, I felt like were very, very, very good. So I was happy. Some other things I've learned. I got my notes here. I keep looking. Sorry. If I don't write this stuff down, I will talk about the most random shit. You got to play within yourself, right? I think I've said that before, but you have to play your own game, okay? We are not tour pros, and we never will be. Well, most of us never will be. You got to play within yourself. Know your limits. I keep harping on knowing your carry yardages for each club. That's very, very important. Maybe not so much as a beginner, because as a beginner, you're just trying to advance the ball in a consistent manner and get the ball in the hole in a decent amount of strokes. But as you progress and start to bring that score down, those are the little things that are going to start making the difference. Knowing that you hit your 7-iron 180 yards, not 185 yards. 185 yards, you better club up to a 6-iron, right? Makes sense? So things like that absolutely matter. I've learned that par isn't always a requirement. Okay? Sometimes bogey is a great score. So let's talk about that. Okay. When should you chase par? For the mid to high handicapper, par is like a birdie for a scratch golfer, right? So when should you be thinking par? Well, let's just start at the tee box, right? Let's say it's a relatively short par 4, under 400 yards, whatever. Off the tee, you put your ball down the middle, down the fairway, 230, 240 yards. You're off to a good start, so you should still be thinking par because you've set yourself up. Step number 1, get the ball in play. You did that. So, par still looks good. From the fairway, you pull your ball left into some trees up near the green. So now you're in trouble. Are you still going to be chasing par at that point? The answer is no. No. Can you still make par? Yes. If your ball's in play, of course you could still make par. But should par still be your priority? No. Now, bogey becomes a great score because you've gotten yourself out of position. All right? If you go back to the fairway, you hit your tee shot down the middle. Now let's say you hit your approach shot onto the green about 30 feet away from the hole. That's a green light. You've got a green light for a par. Hit your putt relatively close. Maybe you'll get lucky. It'll go in and get out of there with a 2-putt. There's your par. As a mid to high handicapper, that was a great hole. That was an excellent hole. Drive, approach, 2-putt. So you had a green light for par all the way throughout the hole. You didn't have to take any chances. You didn't have to hit a hero shot. None of that nonsense. You set yourself up. You executed. You got the score you wanted. Now, you pull your approach shot left into some trees. Now you don't really have a shot to the green. Or maybe you do, but it's a hero shot. So now, at that point, to make yourself a better golfer, now's the point of that hole where you have to go, okay, bogey just became a really good score. How do I get there? If that means you got to pitch out sideways for your third shot, pitch on and try and 1-putt for your 5, cool. If that means that you have an opportunity to get the ball closer to the hole and get it on the green, maybe you still get the opportunity for a 2-putt and you get out of there with a 5. But what you don't want to do is compound the problem, right? Say you don't have a shot at the green, but you try to make one. And how many times have you seen somebody in your playing group try and get out of trees and they hit another tree and it goes backwards or sideways or whatever? They just make the situation worse. Now, they've gone from trying to get a par to now bogey's a great score to holy shit, I might be looking at a snowman here. And if you don't know, snowman's an 8. Double par on a par 4. All because they were trying to chase a score they shouldn't have been trying to chase. I'll tell you, there are scenarios where you hit a bad drive. Um, I've hit a drive before to where I was over, I can't remember the hole. Well, I've done it more than once. Not like it happened once on one hole. I'm not that good. But I've hit drives before where I've still been over 200 yards into a par four. And at that point, I'm looking at the hole. Let's say I'm 210 yards out on a par four, and there's water on one side of the green, or there's water near the green. There's bunkers. It's not a very accessible green. I will tell myself, and I will do this. I'll be like, well, I'm just going to lay up to a safe yardage and try and put a wedge remotely close and see if I can't one putt for a par. So essentially, I turn it into a par five. If I'm that far back and there's trouble, I'm going to lay up on a par four and hopefully hit a wedge. If I give myself inside of 15, 20 feet to try and save a miraculous par, I'm okay with that. Because from there, I should more than likely two putt and get out of there with a bogey. And after hitting a very, very bad drive, you still walking away with a bogey, that's a great score. That's a good hole. If you've never holed out and told yourself, man, that's a good bogey, then I think you're missing out. I think you're missing the point. There has been many times I've saved a bogey on a hole and been as happy as I could be if I'd made birdie. Because you don't want to compound the problem and turn a par bogey into a double or a triple. So, just like we talked about last season when I was talking about tee box strategy with par threes, right? You don't take enough club, you come up short in the water. Now you have to re-tee. Well, depending on where you went out, double bogey just became a very, very real possibility. So instead of trying to go with that flag, just put it on the green, try to get that one putt for bogey and save the card. And should you miss, double bogey is not very unrealistic when you get in trouble off a tee on a par three. But you understand what I'm saying. Like, you always have to try to minimize the damage. Once you get out of position, whatever score you were going for is more than likely gone. Let's just say that. So, chasing par, you should always chase par if you're in position to do so. You hit a good tee shot, green light, you're still chasing par. You hit a good approach shot, green light, you're still chasing par. You hit a good tee shot, but then you hit a bad approach shot. Okay, let's rethink par. Maybe we need to talk about bogey. What's the next shot I need to hit that makes sure or gives me the best opportunity to get out of there with, at worst, a bogey? I hope that all makes sense. I've learned that bad shots are going to happen. I think a lot of us, and I'm guilty of it sometimes, but I think a lot of us go out there with this expectation that we're going to play really well and we're not going to hit any bad shots. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. My son was homesick today, so. And as I've said before, it's really, really hard to record when other people are here. And it's not their fault. It's just the design of our house is sound just carries right up here into this room. It doesn't matter where they are. So, I'll edit all that out. You'll never even know that it happened, except for the fact that I just told you. So, where was I? Yes, bad shots. So, bad shots are going to happen. You're not just going to go to the golf course and shoot 78, 80, or whatever your normal score is without bad shots. And I think people forget that. We're all guilty of it, but I think that's why people get so mad when they play golf. I used to get mad a long time ago. I don't anymore. But we have this false sense of, I don't know, perfection or whatever the case might be, that we should not hit bad shots. And that's just not the case. Everybody hits a bad shot. As a matter of fact, there's a high probability you hit more bad shots than good shots in a round of golf. Right? Depending on your skill level, if you're in the middle of the fairway and you miss the green from 150 yards, that might be a bad shot for some of you. It might be a good shot for some of you. I guess it depends on proximity to the hole, which we've talked about. Just because you missed the green doesn't mean it was a bad shot, depending on your skill level. Now, people get wrapped around the axle about hitting these good shots, and when they don't, they get all upset. But have you ever heard that golf is a game of misses? Golf is a game of misses, and whoever misses the best usually plays the best, right? Because you don't, what am I trying to say? You're not going to put the ball exactly where you want to every time you swing the club. You're just not. All right? You're sitting in the middle of the fairway. You're 150 yards out. Say the pin is middle right, very accessible. You're like, all right, I'm just going to aim at the middle of the green. And you yank it left. Okay? Well, you've missed on the, if you're going to miss the green, you missed on the correct side because you don't want to short side yourself. But that's still a miss. You did not hit the shot you intended to hit. And I'd go so far as to say that if you hit one or two shots around exactly like you meant to, then it was a good day. As a matter of fact, I think it was Greg Norman. Greg Norman said one time when he was like the number one golfer in the world or something like that, he said, if I hit one shot around exactly like I meant to, it was a great round of golf. Think about that for a second. That's the best golfer in the world saying if he hits one shot around exactly like he meant to, it was a great round. So again, why are we getting mad? Why are we getting upset when we miss a golf shot? We shouldn't be. A mid to high handicapper is going to hit 5 to 10 genuinely bad golf shots around. And what I mean by that is out of bounds, straight chunking it and the ball going 5 yards, topping it and it just kind of trickling down the fairway. Like, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen anywhere from 5 to 10 times around for the mid to high handicap golfer. So you just move on, right? You got in trouble. Get yourself out of trouble. That's all you can do. Try to minimize the damage. What you don't want to do is think, oh, I chunked that 5 yards. Now I have to hit the hero shot. I got to make up for it. I need to make par on this hole. That's how you get in trouble. That's how you get in trouble. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If it's not a golf shot that you feel like you can pull off 7, 8 out of 10 times, then you do not need to be attempting that golf shot. It's just that simple. These are the facts. Because at the end of the day, you bring your score down A lot of it's mental. To bring your score down, it's mental. It's making the right decisions. And it's making the right decisions when you're borderline kind of upset. You're having a good round. Say you're on the 16th hole, and the first 15 holes you've been playing lights out golf, and you're having a career round for you. Lights out could mean anything, right? For me, as a 6 handicap, it might mean that I'm 1, 2, 3 over par for the round. For somebody else who's a higher handicap, maybe they're on the verge of breaking 100, whatever. Then you get on the 16th tee and you slice one way out of bounds. Now is when you really, really, really need to get your brain in check and say, oh, okay, that sucks. I didn't mean to do that. Let's get out of here. Let's minimize the damage, right? Because if it's red stake and you get the drop wherever the ball crossed the line, okay, now you're laying 3. If it's a par 4, maybe you can get the ball on the green and somehow miraculously one putt for bogey, but you don't want to do any worse than double bogey. But if it's not necessarily a shot where you can still get the ball to the green, what you don't want to do is try to get the ball to the green and make matters worse. Because if it's not a realistic approach, now you need to stop and think, okay, I'm out of bounds. I'm lying 3. I'm about to hit 4 from 240 yards out. It's not realistic for you to say, I'm going to put this ball on the green and one putt for bogey. Now is when you need to go, okay, I'm going to have to eat it here. I'm probably looking at a double bogey. How do I make sure I don't turn that into a triple bogey? Right? Okay, I'm going to, put this 4 shot as close as I can to the green without getting in trouble. I'm going to attempt to put a wedge somewhat close and try and make the putt for double bogey. That's all you can do. If you end up with triple bogey, that's one thing. But at least you didn't invite the triple bogey by being dumb and making dumb decisions. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So, again, it all goes back to playing within yourself, understanding when you should be going after par, when bogey's a good score. Those aren't bad. That's not a bad thing. Bogeys for us are not bad. Now, if I got 18 bogeys in 18 holes, I might be like, I was doing something wrong there. But in general, bogeys are not bad. Be happy with playing within yourself, and what you score is what you score. And hopefully it gives you ideas on what you need to work on to help bring that down. Mental notes. Where did you make mental mistakes? Because I find more often than not, I don't think back to bad swings. I mean, I have bad swings. Don't get me wrong. But in general, when I'm looking back on a bad score on a hole, like if I get a double bogey, I'll look back to one specific decision that I made that caused that double bogey. Like the double bogey I got yesterday. Okay, here's how the hole went. I was on the back 9, number 12. A par 10, a par 11, right? I shot 40 on the front 9. I was on a little string of pars, though. I had parred 7, 8, 9. No, I'm sorry, I bogeyed 7. I parred 8, I parred 9, I parred 10, 11, right? So I'm kind of on a roll here. I was trying to play a fade. Like I said, my driver just was ass yesterday. I was trying to fade the ball, and I did a double cross and pulled it straight left into these big trees just to the left of the fairway, about 200 yards out. Now, just left of the trees is the road, and that's out of bounds. Luckily, those trees, I hit them, and the ball did its little pinball thing and came down. And I had a shot towards the green, but I could not get to the green. So in my brain, I'm like, okay, I cannot get this ball to the hole. 5 just became a really good score. So I took a 5-wood and I hit a little punch shot out of there. It rolled a little further than I'd wanted to, and it ended up in this bunker about 40 yards short of the green. But the sand was wet, so it was kind of firm from where it's cold. So I had a good lie in the bunker. It was not really a difficult shot because I knew that I could play it like a standard pitch shot, right? Like I didn't have to hit like a traditional bunker style shot. I could just play a normal pitch shot with my sand wedge, and I knew I could get it there. And so that's what I did. I flew it a little deep, and it landed just on the back edge. So I had I probably had 25 feet for par at that point. So at this point, I'm not upset, right? Didn't hit a good drive, but I executed the punch out. I executed the bunker shot. I got 25 feet for par downhill. And here's where I screwed up. I screwed up because I was aggressive and I told myself, get the ball to the hole. Because throughout the round, I had been leaving the ball short and had to make more than I wanted 3 to 4 5-foot putts for par, right? And so I just, even though it was downhill, I made the decision that I was going to be aggressive and get the ball to the hole so I could at least have a comeback putt up the hill. And I rammed it right by. And it went, I think it went 8 feet past the hole. And I missed the comeback for bogey. And I ended up with double bogey. So the decision is what led to my double bogey. So that's what I mean by, when you look back on a round, you normally look back on decisions you made rather than necessarily shots you made. Because normally a bad shot is from a bad decision, if that makes sense. Not always, but a lot of the times an ego decision leads to a bad shot, which leads to a bad score. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. I feel like I just totally rambled for 30 minutes, and I'm sure I did. But the takeaway from this is just play your game. Golf your swing. I've said it once, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it. Nobody cares how you got the ball in the hole. Nobody cares. They don't care if you topped your drive 200 yards, topped a 7-iron another 150 yards, chipped on and one putted from 30 feet. It doesn't matter. And the guy beside you hit a bomb drive, hit a flip wedge, and 2 putted. His score says 4. Your score says 4. That's all that matters. So play within yourself. Golf your swing. And I can guarantee you, you're going to be much happier and enjoy this game a lot more. Okay, so as usual, I have rambled and rambled and rambled. Turns out I'm very good at that. It's funny too, right? Because as I'm sitting down to think about what this, the next podcast is going to be about, I come up with ideas, but then as I sit there, I kind of struggle. Like, how am I going to make this into a segment? And then I just start talking, and it just keeps coming out and coming out and coming out. I hope it makes sense. I hope somebody out there would please tell me at some point if they listen to a podcast and go, dude, you were all over the place. So I thought we'd have a little fun today again. I kind of enjoyed that Q&A the other day. So on this little outro segment here, I thought that I would just answer some more questions that help you get to kind of know me better, or maybe just know more things about me, right? I try to be an open book on here. Like I said, I don't, for those of you that will only listen to audio, I do drink coffee while I do this. So if you randomly hear pauses and slurps. That's me drinking coffee. Look, I said from day one, I don't want to be fake on this thing. I want to try and be who I am in reality. So what you see is what you get. So let's have some fun here. Here's some more questions that I'm going to try and answer. Number 19. Oh, it's number 19, but I'm just starting at the end. What was the hardest lesson your military career taught you? That you have to treat everybody equally. Now, what I mean by that has nothing to do with anything you might think it has to do. What I mean by that is in the Navy, and I'm sure across all the militaries, or across all professions, you're going to have your favorites. You are. There are people that you know you can count on. There are people you kind of got to keep an eye on. And then there's dirtbags. That's just the way it is. That's not me being harsh. That's reality. Now, obviously, I can only speak to the Navy. But I'm here to tell you, you got your rock stars, you got your middle of the roads, and you got your dirtbags who don't belong in the military. But the hardest lesson that I had to learn was you have to treat those rock stars just like you treat the dirtbags in general. Meaning, the rock stars aren't perfect. They're going to make mistakes. You can't give them free passes. You have to hold them accountable just like you'd hold that dirtbag accountable. And there's nothing more difficult than when one of your rock stars makes a really bad decision and has to go to like captain's mast or something. You hate to see it because they're such a promising sailor with potential. But if they screwed up, they screwed up. And, you have to be the one to hold them to that. It's just that simple. And so that was a hard lesson to learn the first time I had to take one of my superstar sailors to mast. So, yeah, there we go. What kind of leader do you think people see you as? Whew. I would hope that they see me as fair and level-headed. I was never the military leader that looked at all of my sailors as like my subordinates, right? Yes, they were my subordinates. Yes, they worked for me. But I always believed in a more relaxed environment because I feel like people can work better that way. I feel like people can make better decisions that way. Now, obviously, there are times where I got to put my game face on and I got to be a dick. And I was never scared to do that. And my sailors knew that. But at the same time, there's never a reason to be a dick just because you can be. Those are the people that don't know how to lead. And they're out there. The military's full of them. They think just because they're in a position of power, they have to be an asshole. And you bend to their will. And I just never saw the need to lead that way. I always wanted to make sure that my sailors knew that they had an avenue to speak their mind and voice their opinions and their concerns as long as they did it in a respectful way. And as when it came to the Chiefs mess, once I was an officer, I was definitely more laid back with those guys and gals. Because like I said, I loved being a chief. I loved everything about it. And I'd go so far as to tell you, now that I'm retired, when I got to my last command and I was the division officer of power plants, I had a senior chief, and I think it was like 3 or 4 chiefs at the time. And I got them all in a room. Because one thing you should always do as a leader when you first take over a job is lay out expectations, right? Hey, this is what I expect from you. What do you expect from me? And you allow them to let you know, like, hey, sir, this is what we expect from you. Because that's fair. That's how you create that environment of getting shit done. Because if you just make assumptions that people know what you want or expect, it's never going to happen. But I told my chiefs and my senior chief, I was like, look, I don't give a shit what you guys call me. When we're behind closed doors and it's just us, you can call me whatever you want. I don't like being called sir. I never liked being called sir, to be honest with you. But I just made sure they understood, hey, when other people are around, when junior sailors are around especially, have your game face on. So, but yeah, I think I was the kind of leader that people would say that I was very level-headed and fair. When did you feel the most proud professionally? Getting pinned to chief and then commissioning as an officer, because those are 2 huge milestones that not everybody gets to experience. I'm not going to say one's harder than the other, meaning it's harder to make chief than it is harder to commission. But I will say going through chief's initiation and the games that we play in those 6 to 7 weeks, it's a lot. It can be taxing. It can be very stressful. When I went through initiation in 2011, I would have to leave the house every day by, it was like 4:45 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't get home till about 11 at night, 5 days a week. I barely, when the dude was only like 3 years old when I went through chief's initiation, it was very rare for me to see him awake. Normally he'd be in bed asleep when I got home and when I went to work. And I might get to see him a little bit on the weekends, because back then you still had fundraisers and car washes and all that stuff. So you don't just get selected for chief and put it on. You have to get through initiation and earn that right to be accepted. And so actually I'd have to say that is where I felt the most proud professionally, was the day I got accepted and pinned as a chief. September 16th, 2011. What's one skill from aviation and QA, quality assurance, that most civilians would never understand? I wouldn't say that this is a skill, but this is true. We have a procedure that we do on the jet, on F-18s, that we just call Control-Alt-Delete. Right? Because on a computer, if your computer is ever frozen up, right, you hit Control-Alt-Delete and your little menu box pops up and it allows you to like kill a program or maybe even restart the computer. We'll do that on jets. It is not uncommon at all for something to go wrong on a jet, maybe something electrical, a glitch in the matrix, and the troubleshooters are working with the pilot and we can't figure it out. And even the pilots know. We'll say, hey, just Control-Alt-Delete and let's see what happens. And they will literally just shut the jet down. We'll wait a minute and then we'll start it back up. And more often than not, the problem is gone. And the jet goes, right? Because those guys want to go fly. Guys and girls, sorry. I say guys a lot. I'm not trying to be, one way or another. But they want to fly. And as long as the jet is up, they will take an up jet. And so Control-Alt-Delete is a real thing. It's something we use on the flight deck all the time, and it works. So it's not that most civilians would never understand that, but they'd probably be surprised to learn that. Let's see. Do I miss the structure of military life? No, I do not. I've said before that I was never that guy. I was never Joe Military. Look at me. Um, I don't miss that structure at all. Um, I jokingly said, and it's not really a joke, that since I retired from the Navy, I have missed the Navy uh, for 0 seconds. Like, there's never been a time where I thought, maybe I screwed up. I miss it. I just don't. Obviously, it was a big part of my life for almost 25 years. And the Navy was very, very good to me. I ended up being very successful in the Navy. And in large part, not because I'm very good. That's a little bit, I will say I was very good at being a Hornet mechanic and maintainer and maintenance manager. But it's your people around you that make you successful. I made chief because of my sailors and the great job that they did. I was selected for commissioning because of my sailors and their ability to allow me to do my job correctly and get the good evals. So it's not necessarily something I did. It's what my sailors did for me. And so, I mean, you definitely miss the people. I do miss being around a lot of the people and the sailors, but I don't miss the structure and rigid military lifestyle. Not one bit. Okay, let's get into some fun questions here. Let's see. If you could play one round of golf anywhere in the world tomorrow, where is it? The old course of St. Andrews. That's easy. That is probably my number one bucket list golf course at this point. My wife helped me get Pebble Beach taken off the list. Now I got to get over to Scotland and play those courses, especially the old course. And I know it's a lottery system. See, that's why I wouldn't be able to go to Scotland for just a week. I'd have to go for at least a month. Because 1 week of that would be me trying to get onto the old course because it's a lottery. It's a daily lottery. So take note of that, babe. We have to go to Scotland for a month. Okay? I know you're going to listen to this. What's your walk-up song to the first tee? Oh, I don't know. Shit. I don't have one. I have no idea. I like so much. Music's a big part of my life, as you can tell behind me. I don't know if my vinyl is, yeah, you can see little bits and pieces of my vinyl collection there. Yeah, I got my buddy's book propped up there. I've got my original pressing of Molly Maguire there, which is from the early 90s. Super hard to find, very rare. I've got my framed poster boards up there. I mean, I love music, man. So, and I'm actually kind of a music snob. There's just so many, I don't even know if I have an all-time favorite song. I will say that for all the metal and heavy metal and thrash metal and stoner metal and doom metal that I love, one of my all-time favorite songs is Sultans of Swing by Dire Straits. That's really the song that, like, I used to hear it a lot growing up because my dad listened to all the good music. My dad listened to Dire Straits and CCR and Bob Seger and all those guys when I was a kid. So if I had to pick a song, I would say at this point, Sultans of Swing. Why not? Swing, right? All right. If you had to give one piece of advice to a 20-year-old version of yourself, what would it be? Well, in life, I would say take advantage of your opportunity while you're at Marshall, and do better. Get your degree, because I did not. I was such a terrible student. I mean, I was a shit student. I did really good in my major classes. So, hang on. I was a criminal justice major. So, any class related to that, I damn near aced. but it was all the other classes that you have to take, right? Like English and math, and um, I had to take psychology once. Those are classes that I just kind of gaffed off and got very, very, very bad grades in. Plus, a lot of classes, if you don't already know this, and I'm sure most of you do, a lot of classes in college aren't what you think. Like I like to draw. I used to draw a lot when I was younger. So going into college, I saw this night class that was art, right? And I'm thinking, oh, I get to draw. Perfect. Wrong. That was a once a week night class that was 3 hours long about like art, all the different styles and techniques and how to look at art and how to learn how to read art and describe art, and it was bad. I sucked at that class. Um, I also was so stupid as to take sports history, thinking, oh, sports history, baseball, football, basketball, whatever. Wrong. Sports history literally teaches you about the history of sports all over the world, like games they played in ancient times and shit like that. Uh, and I will tell you that a lot of the core classes that I had to take, I ended up taking twice because I did so bad in them. I'd have to go back and take them again. And then the second time around, I did good. But so for life advice, I would tell 20-year-old me, this is a golden opportunity to get your degree. 20-year-old golf me, I would say you're going to realize that distance doesn't matter that much. It doesn't matter as much as you think. Become a short game wizard. That's what I would tell 20-year-old me. Your distance will happen. Whatever distance you have will be just fine. Become a short game wizard. I think if I had started really, really concentrating on my short game a long time ago, I would probably be a scratch golfer. Let's see. What are you most grateful for right now? Well, it's easy. My family. You know, I'm married to my best friend, my soulmate. Um, like we couldn't be more perfect for each other. She thinks the same, by the way. For anybody out there that might think I'm talking on her behalf, she feels the same way. Right? Right. Um, but yeah, my family, I've got my wife. Between us, we've got 4 healthy kids. We've got a healthy grandson. We have a roof over our head. You know, we're what can we complain about? Honestly, sure, life has its ups and downs, bumps in the roads as far as like, unexpected money expenditures here or whatever. But we honestly can't complain about anything. So, family for sure. Let's see. What scares you more? Failing publicly or never trying? Well, that's easy, never trying, right? Like this podcast, for example. I don't know how people honestly receive it. Like my YouTube following has been growing and growing and growing and growing. Is it real? Do all of those people actually watch everything I put out? Or are these just people that click subscribe for whatever reason? Plus, I feel like I put myself out there. I will be the first one to admit that in general, I am very much an introvert. I have zero problems being alone in my own little world. Um, I don't have to be around people. I don't have to talk to people. I do, and I can, but it's not something that I require to function. So, um, so this podcast for me was definitely stepping out of my little bubble of comfort and putting myself out there on the internet for anybody to see, make fun of, whatever, turn me into a meme. It could happen. Let me make a face, right? There's my meme face. So I think for sure it would scare me more to never try than to fail. Um, and it's funny, I can remember a very specific moment in my Navy career. I had just made chief, So I was no longer the LPO of my work center. Yeah, LPO is leading petty officer. So I was no longer in charge of my work center. And so they needed to replace me. And they did not have another first class to replace me. So it came down to these two E5s that we had. And one of them was in QA. And so I went over, here I am, fresh, brand new Chief Frazier. I go into QA. I'll never forget this. And I go, hey, how do you feel about becoming the next LPO of the AME shop? And he's like, I don't know. I don't know if I want that responsibility. So I was like, all right. So I just turned around and walked out. I walked right into the work center. And the other E5 that they were thinking about, I walked right up to him and I said, they're going to come in here and they're going to ask if you want to be the LPO. And your only fucking answer is yes. Are we clear? Yes, Chief. I said, because, this is why I remember this. I said, because they would rather see you jump at the opportunity to lead and fail than not want to do it at all. And he's like, absolutely, Chief, I got it. And that was that. He was the next LPO of the work center. And he did a pretty good job. So I never forgot that. And that was 15 years ago now. And I can literally remember that conversation like it was yesterday. So yeah, definitely never trying anything scares me more. All right. What is one thing people assume about you that isn't true? Oof. Probably that I'm an asshole. I mean, I would have to say that's probably it. I'd be willing to bet that a lot of people think that I'm an asshole because I do have hardcore resting bitch face. I definitely look like somebody that does not want to be bothered most of the time. Now, when I'm on here, I'm talking, I'm kind of loose. But if you ever run into me in public, I probably look like I don't want you approaching me. But that's honestly, yes, there are. I would go so far as to say I'm not exactly a people person, but I'm not an asshole. I generally go out of my way to be nice to people and help people for the most part. So, but if I had to guess, I'd say that people probably assume that I'm an asshole. And that's okay. It doesn't bother me. Last question. What makes you feel most like yourself? Whoa, it's kind of deep. What makes me feel most like myself? Damn. Man, that's such a good question. I probably should have read these beforehand. Oh, what makes you feel most like yourself? Um, well, golf's a big part of my life, and it's a big part of my identity. So, I mean, there's a couple ways you can look at this, right? Obviously, like I said earlier, I'm most grateful for my family. I'm not a very outwardly emotional person. They would definitely tell you that. It's not to mean that I don't convey my affection. It's just I'm not a very outwardly emotional guy. I'm just not. But from a me standpoint, put that aside, I would say what makes me feel most like myself is just being on the golf course. That's my happy place. Now that my wife plays golf, it's even better because I love playing golf with her. We just have the best time out there, and I love watching her learn, and I love watching her get better. And she gets better every time we play. So I would say I feel most like myself when I'm on the golf course with her, and we're in our environment, and we're happy. She would probably tell you that hers is the beach. She's a beach girl for sure. But now we have to start throwing golf into those vacations too. So, but yeah, what makes me feel most like myself is being on the course with her and just doing our thing that we enjoy. All right. Well, I think that's it. I have talked for well over an hour now. Hopefully, people even stick around for the whole show. I'm not sure if they do or not. But either way, I'm grateful for all the followers. Thank you so much. Keep listening, keep liking, subscribing, following wherever you get your podcasts. I think I said this last week, but my main focus is going pretty much towards YouTube. That's where I seem to be getting the most traction. But I still put it on Spotify and I still put it on Apple. So we'll see what happens from there. But again, as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And, keep the golf going. Keep practicing. Keep hitting it. If you got any questions, please send them to my email or comment on this podcast. And other than that, thanks for joining me this week. And until next time, send it.